Hey guys, quick reminder before we get started that the world's largest arena for sports and collectibles is back in New York City this summer. Catch the return of Fanatics Fest from June 20th to the 22nd in the Javits Center, where you could share the floor with the biggest names in sports. That means appearances by over 500 iconic athletes and celebrities from your favorite teams like the Knicks, Mets, Yankees, the Giants, plus live panels and podcasts, exclusive merch collabs, and a trading card area with 200 of the biggest dealers in the biz, and so much more. Get your tickets today. Use the link in the description. It's from your friends here at Knicks Film School, from our friends over at Fanatics. It's 20% off. Use promo code Knicks Film School 20, and that offer is good. It's been extended just for you. It's good until June 4th. Again, that's Knicks Film School 20 for 20% off. You can get a 3-day pass over the weekend or a single-day admission on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. When the world's greatest athletes are in New York City, don't miss it.
What did I do now that brought you up here?
You made this happen, ladies and gentlemen. Fred Katz.
Oh, you got him.
Yeah.
Wow. It's a big get.
This is a big get. How we got the author of an end of season article that's making its way through the rounds of Knicks Twitter, maybe some other Knicks places. So, Fred, I'm going to fuck off and let you and John do this exclusive interview that will take at max 7 minutes.
Great.
We have 60 more super chats.
Also, because it's 3:15 in the morning and I am tired, John.
I'll take 2 minutes of your time. Pull up the fucking thing.
Or just ask him because he wrote it.
Fred, you wrote about maybe there was some misgivings about the team's. Fuck both of you off so hard. You all should get eternal loads to every part of your personage. You wrote about I really just hate everybody so much. You wrote about Kat and the team potentially having some misgivings about his issues on the defensive end of the floor this year. What do you think happens in the offseason there, Mr. Katz?
I don't know what's going to happen there. I think it's too early to tell, to be honest. I think that's something the Knicks have to figure out on their own. You know what's funny? When it's in an end of season story, and I recognize the timing of the release of that story was not the most diplomatic, which was not something that thrilled me, to be honest. But
that's not your choice, though. You don't choose when to release pieces that you write.
No. But I mean, I've written about that. It was funny because I wrote that in that story, and I didn't think that much about it because I wrote a whole story in the Boston series about how kind of this has been a theme all year where Kat was kind of running pick and roll coverages incorrectly the whole time through. A lot of the issues that they had in their locker room were basketball ones, you know? They were basketball ones. Like, you know, I saw one of your super chatters say, like, it sounds like the locker room was a mess. I wouldn't say the locker room was a mess. I covered the 2018-19 Wizards. They were a mess. Jeff Green threw a basketball at Austin Rivers in a practice once. Like they were a mess. They were a mess. I wouldn't say this locker room was a mess because I don't think this locker room had bad or selfish guys. I think this locker room generally had a lot of good, high character guys. I think sometimes personalities mesh in ways that are just like 10 out of 10. And sometimes they mesh in ways that aren't 10 out of 10. And it's not necessarily indictment on the quality of the person. And I think this year's didn't quite mesh the same way that last year's did. I don't think it's irreparable. I don't think it's a disaster. I think like Kat is somebody who's an extremely well-intentioned person and is a very, very, very well-liked person with, you know, just these very outgoing, very friendly personality traits that people tend to just really like him on a human level. But specifically just with the pick and roll coverage stuff, you know, it was something that I know they tried to get into his head to be like, dude, this is the thing. This is the thing. This is the thing. Just run the right coverage. This is the thing. And I know it was something that was a big sticking point of frustration throughout the season. And once it makes Twitter, it makes its way around. I understand if people thought it was harsh, but I think in the context of the story, it doesn't come off as harsh.
Well, just to actually read the words. First of all, whenever anything starts with the behind the scenes, there's an immediate assumption of illicitness. I don't know if that's a word. But you write that players and coaches express frustration with Towns' defensive habits. How, if a player or coach on this team did not express frustration with Karl-Anthony Towns' defensive habits, everybody should have their head examined. So I don't, no disrespect to you, I don't even think that's. I mean, what are you really reporting there? You're reporting Knicks players and coaches are human. Okay, good to know. They're not animatronic creatures. The part is the incorrect coverages and the grasping the importance of getting the coverage correct. And I think it's interesting you contrast it with last year's team, because last year, say what you want about any number of issues that team may have had and things that they could that did not add up on the basketball part of it. But was there ever any question that the guys that played the big minutes down the stretch took every possession as seriously as their coach did?
Well, what was interesting about last year's team was everybody thought last year's team was so rosy, that it was just all peaches and cream. Yeah. And they got along so great because the vibes were so great. And I always thought what made last year's team such an interesting study of what good culture was and good locker room was that they didn't always get along amazing. Like, there were times where they had conflict and they had to deal with things. And that was good in my mind. And I think that was good in their minds. Dante DiVincenzo used to talk about a lot that, like, on last year's team, what was great was he could just walk right up to Isaiah Hartenstein and Dante doesn't sugarcoat anything. And he could just be like, you're fucking this up. You keep fucking this up. Stop fucking it up. And Isaiah would just be like, oh crap. Wait, can you tell me how I cannot fuck this up? And Dante would be like, yeah. And then he would tell him, and then he would stop. And that would be it. And it was never really personal because they all, first of all, I think they were close enough to where they kind of had the relationship to where they could talk to each other like that. And nobody took it personally. They knew it was just them trying to make each other better. And second of all, I think they all kind of had understood this common goal of, like, we're here to win basketball games, as many basketball games as we can. And I think there's a sort of natural sort of thing that happens. Like, you can't manufacture that. You know what I mean? Like, Isaiah Hartenstein and Dante DiVincenzo had that connection. So they were able to do that. And you can't manufacture that. And sometimes it just happens. And sometimes it just doesn't. Mitchell Robinson used to complain about Isaiah Hartenstein closing over him every time that Hartenstein closed over him. Every time there'd be like a Snapchat. And then somebody on the internet would be like, oh my goodness, Mitchell Robinson's clowning Isaiah Hartenstein. And then you would go to Isaiah Hartenstein and he'd be like, classic Mitch, right? So funny. And it was like, they were just personality. Like, Hartenstein could have been pissed. Instead, those two became like unbelievably close friends. And he thought it was hilarious every time Mitch did that. It's just like, sometimes people just end up meshing. And in other times, I don't want to say they didn't mesh because there wasn't like hatred in this locker room or anything like that. Like, it wasn't cohesive. I think we saw it on the court. Like, they didn't enhance each other. I don't think they made each other worse, but they didn't enhance each other. There wasn't really a point where we were like, man, Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns are looking like Murray and Jokic. There wasn't a point where we saw them consistently enhance each other time and time again. And I think that kind of, was the story of their season.
Well, it feels like to me, and you've watched and cared deeply about this sport for as long as I have, there was a baseline of consistency in certain aspects that you need to go all the way. The Denver Nuggets against the Oklahoma City Thunder in their series, they got torpedoed in like 2 games, right? They got demolished.
Mm-hmm.
But you watch the Nuggets and you watch how they go about their business. Even with a player like Russell Westbrook playing massive minutes, and he is as inconsistent from play to play, quarter to quarter as anybody in the league. Even with that wild card, there was you knew. Again, I don't know what the word is for it, but if you see it, you know it. And then when you see a team that doesn't have that specific sort of consistency, it screams it. And it's why I didn't pick them to lose against Detroit. You didn't pick them to lose against Detroit. But if they lost against Detroit, would you have been shocked beyond belief? No, you would have been like, oh, the Knicks dixed that series up because that's what this team can do. And that to me, and then the other comment and Mark put it in the chat, I don't know if you were in this, where if you heard it, were in the scrum or whatever. The Deuce comment, I thought that was pretty notable, where he's like, this is, what is it? It felt like a lot of stuff throughout the year got exposed now. For Deuce to say that was like, oh.
Yeah. People noticed that.
They did.
That was, people noticed that he said that. Deuce is a very laid back, uncontroversial guy. He is a guy who gets along with everybody in that locker room. Everybody respects him, works hard, super chill personality, no ego. And so when Deuce says that kind of stuff, people tend to, he's not like a loud locker room voice or anything like that, because he's young and he's this chill guy. And I think he still takes the daily approach of I'm here to learn. So he cozies up to Jalen and wants to learn from Jalen. And he cozies up to the older guys. He wants to learn from the older guys he's very mature for his age. He's 23, but he doesn't act like a 23-year-old. And when he says, every once in a while, Deuce will say something that's very honest, because he's very smart, and he'll say something that's very honest, and you kind of have to catch it. And I thought that was one of them, where it was look, I wrote that story today about, with James Edwards, about kind of the locker room stuff they have attempted to overcome throughout the year, not because they lost and release all the bad stuff, because I didn't think it was really releasing all the bad stuff. What I thought it was when a team loses, when a team has success, we paint everything as rosy.
Yeah.
And to me, this is, and we wrote it in the story, this is a successful season. If you're a Knicks fan and you are upset because they lost tonight, totally. They just lost the conference finals. You had a chance to go to the finals. They could have beaten the Pacers. They didn't deserve to beat the Pacers. Pacers totally outplayed them. They deserved to win that series. But they could have beaten the Pacers in a different world. Game 1 goes differently. Maybe they win. If you feel like an opportunity slipped away, I totally understand that. And if you're a Knicks fan, of course you're going to be upset tonight. I'm not saying you should feel otherwise. However, I do believe that with time, people will and should look back on this team as they didn't make the playoffs, and then they made it to the second round. They lost to Miami, and they made it to the second round, and they lost in 7 to Indiana in a game where everybody got hurt. And then they made it to the conference finals. They've got everybody under contract for next year in their top 7.
Yep.
They have a bunch of guys in their 20s.
Yep.
Their cap sheet's in a good spot. They're not going to be in the second apron. The organization's in a good place. Like, this was a successful season for them. Like, the conference finals is a great accomplishment. That's a great year. It's an awesome year. And this was not I don't think this was not just like a Hawks conference finals run. Like, this I don't think so. This was a conference finals run. Like, they beat the defending champs in round 2. I think it was a real successful year, but I also think it's important to paint like, hey, just because it was a successful year, it doesn't mean that everything was rosy. Just like if they had lost in round 1, it wouldn't necessarily mean that everything was terrible. I think it's interesting to see how in a lot of these team situations, like, here's stuff that teams have to overcome, and here's how they try to overcome them. And here's stuff that plagues them, even when guys have like good intentions and they want to win, and it's not like there was infighting. We didn't write about infighting. It wasn't infighting. It was just guys just couldn't get on the same basketball page for long enough to sustain it.
Yes, but I know.
It's very profound, Fred, and very interesting to hear what Deuce McBride had to say in the locker room. Deuce McBride will be joining us at Fanatics Fest in June, from June 20th to the 22nd. Get your tickets now. By the way, there was a promo code that was on the screen earlier. I
read it earlier.
Yes, I will now read it when it's put on the screen first. Get your tickets today at fanaticsfest.com and get 20% off your ticket price before June 4th with promo code Knicks Film School 20. In fact, ignore that fanaticsfest.com thing that I wrote there. Go to the link in the description. It's a specific KFS link that makes you skip a bunch of steps, and you go right to the order your ticket page, and all you got to do is buy a 1-day ticket or a 3-day ticket. Deuce is going to be there on Friday, I believe. That you can go to fanaticsfest.com and figure out which day Deuce is there. But just get a ticket for all 3 days and get it for 20% off. Thanks to your friends at Knicks Film School. Thanks to our friends at Fanatics Fest. So shout out to Deuce McBride, who will be our friend that weekend at Fanatics Fest.
I'm gonna let Fred go because he needs to get some sleep. Last thing I
could stay. I could stay for a couple minutes if you need me.
We quite literally need to let you go.
No.
55 super chats remaining.
No, because the notion of like scapegoating one player for the failure, and again, I feel funny even saying failures of a team. Like you said, it's been a successful season, but it's always a funky topic because like we could sit here and we could talk about Mikal Bridges' season. We could sit here and talk about Jalen Brunson's defense in these conference finals. We could sit here and talk about OG Anunoby's inconsistency, in particular in the offensive end of the floor. We could talk. Oh my God, we could talk about Josh Hart. My love it, my boy. Look what they did to my boy. He kind of did it to himself, but not a great end of the series. Josh Hart. We could talk about all these things.
Josh Hart, who was Josh Hart and Mitchell Robinson were the two most self-critical guys after the game.
And that makes me it doesn't make me happy that they're upset. It doesn't make me, but like it makes me happy that, and that's why they should be Knicks for life. Neither here nor there. They
care. You can say whatever you want about Mitchell Robinson's offensive game and his ball skills. You can say whatever you want about Josh Hart's jump shooting and, crazy decision making sometimes or whatever else. Those dudes are so competitive and all they want to do is win. Like they are so competitive. And Mitch, like you guys know Mitch. Mitch is normally best player like
in the game for the first half.
Mitch is normally like there's no scenario in which I walk in a locker room and Mitch is not goofing on me, and there were no cameras at his availability. Normally he tells me he doesn't want to talk and then he waits for the cameras to come just to mess with me. And I asked him if he wanted to do it before the cameras came because he just looked so dejected. So I asked him if he wanted to talk and we did it before and he was just sitting there. His shoulders were slouched. He was looking down. He wasn't even making eye contact. It's like, how you feeling after that? And he was like, I just feel like shit. I just feel like absolute shit. And he said he didn't feel like he played to his potential. And I was like, what do you feel like you could have done? He said, I could have played with more energy. I just didn't give enough. Like he just, and I was, as he was saying this, I was like, I mean, I vehemently disagree, but, you know, the reason he feels that way is because he's incredibly competitive. He's look how hard he plays. He's incredibly competitive. I thought he played a great game tonight. I thought he was awesome tonight.
He was awesome.
He was awesome.
He was best player in the first half, and he was you could argue he was the best. OG Anunoby probably was the best player of the game, but he was Mitch's right there. My point is, it's not that whatever didn't add up this season is all on one player, because it's not. But I think different types of inconsistencies have different impacts on a team's collective ability to approach a game with a level of, I don't want to say confidence or preparedness, but like there has to be a certain level of like, all right, we there's again, to use the word, a baseline, like, you know what you're going to get. And for something so fundamental as like the guy who is at the crux of the most important coverage in the sport, like this is what the whole defense comes down to, and for your night in, night out to be like, I don't know, what's it going to be tonight? Like that. If there was it like, there's no way for us to verify this, but I've been sitting here for 4.5, 5 hours almost talking about this team. Why were they so unserious so often? Why were they not better than the sum of their parts? All of that. Wouldn't it just make logical sense that if there is a fundamental part of your team that is so on shaky ground that it prevents you as a collective unit from being able to approach like every game with the level of like what we saw from last year's team, which is, again, last year's team, they were a perfect team. They got their doors blown off sometimes, but you kind of knew what you were going to get, you know? And that's the last thing I have to say.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I wouldn't put it all on Cat for what
it's not all on Cat.
I definitely would not put it all on Cat. I think look, OG was shaky in that same story. I have that, like, you know, people in the organization have absolutely pinpointed every time that OG goes 5 possessions without a touch, and then it affects him on the other end, and they can see it. And that's a thing that happens, you know? You know, I remember when I asked Tibbs about OG, about OG's role changing potentially once Jalen came back, when OG was having that time going off, and Tibbs had that very passionate response to me. And I always took that as like, Tibbs isn't talking to me. He's talking to OG. Like, he's talking to OG here because I'm not doing anything with the ball. Yeah, but that was fine. I don't care about that.
No, I know you don't care, but that was a funny moment.
Yeah, I don't care about that. Tibbs doesn't care about that either. Tibbs can talk to me however he wants, because that's why he does. He knows he can talk to me however he wants, and I don't care at all. Like, I just want to ask questions and learn about basketball. That man knows about basketball, and I'm going to try to find out more. So, like, he can say whatever. I don't care. It really has no effect on me whatsoever. And so I just want him to be honest. I would rather him answer like that. I liked it when he answered like that, because he was being honest. Right. He was being honest. Like, what a million times out of a million, I'll take that over like a polite cliche. A million times out of a million. That's what I want. I want to know what he thinks, and I want to pick his brain. Like, that's all I want. But, like, you know, there are certain things throughout the season where it's like these little sorts of imperfections, they just add up when you play up against a team where, like, the Pacers are a team where they're better than the sum of their parts.
Oh, yeah, they are.
They play beautiful basketball together. They play hard as hell, and they have an identity that they lean into. They play unselfish. They play physical. They play smart. They play fast. They play hard. They are always
all right. That's enough about the Pacers. This is the Knicks Film School Postgame Show. I get it. They're in the NBA Finals. We've officially
so let me bring in Reggie Miller here.
Yeah, Fred. 30 seconds or less if you can, because the chat wants to know: did the Mikal thing linger? the McHale minutes thing where he spoke out. Like, is that still a thing, or has that?
It lingered a little bit. I don't think it healed. I mean, we put in the story like it wasn't what led to their demise.
Okay.
It rubbed people the wrong way at the time, but I think everybody knew that. No, I don't think it.
Okay.
I don't think it lingered.
Didn't linger. Got it. Thank you, Fred.
I think it had no effect on how their season ended.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Check out Katz and Shoot on Patreon. Fred, when are you doing your next episode of Katz and Shoot with the one great James Edwards?
I am. We're gonna do it on Monday. Tomorrow, okay. I need a day. I need a day.
You could take.
You mean today? Because it's technically today. And
today, I need today.
We're now going into hour 5 of
we'll do it on Monday, and then I'm transitioning to covering Pacers Thunder. So
have fun going back and forth between OKC and Indiana for however long that series goes. By the way,
it's still the end of time.
Got it.
I just have to go back and forth from Oklahoma City and Indiana for the next 47 years.
Yeah, have fun with that.
I will not be watching. I'll probably be watching. Thank you, Fred.
It's a good basketball series.
It is a good basketball series, which we're not going to talk about right now.
It's a good series for basketball nerds.
Go Hartenstein.
All right. Fred, I appreciate
Not go Obi? Not go Obi?
No.
Who?
Not go Obi Toppin?
Who? Can I just real quick, Fred, you remember the play that got Obi benched in game 4 against Miami that led to the kerfuffle afterwards?
Uh-huh.
He leaked out, and then he didn't, and whoever he was guarding got the offensive rebound against Tibbs' religion. Isn't it ironic that a game where a team just kept leaking out on every contest and it led to all these fast break points that the Knicks couldn't stop ends up being the play that the Knicks couldn't stop as they get eliminated and Obi Toppin goes to the finals? I laughed at the poetic justice in that. I will just say
their inability to stop anyone from leaking out, Toppin, Siakam, the second half, it was like unbelievable.
Yep.
And to me, part of the reason why you have Mitchell Robinson out there is because you only need to send one guy to the boards.
Yeah, there was a lot of unnecessary staying in. I didn't get.
Yeah, you only need to send one guy to the boards. Everybody else, bust your ass back.
Yeah,
and maybe Siakam over the top every time.
Maybe they were tired.
I voted for Siakam for Eastern Conference MVP. Apparently, people hate that.
Yeah, the deciding vote.
No,
I know. Apparently, people hated that.
No,
I felt good about it.
I thought it was
the conference finals MVP.
Yeah, I feel good about it. I thought he had a really good defensive series. He guarded Cat. He did a good job on Cat in game 6. He did a good job when he had to guard him throughout the series. He did a good job guarding OG when he had to throughout the series. He was unbelievable awesome in transition. He won him game 2. He was just steady in every game. Halliburton's awesome, but he laid a dud in 5 and he didn't really do much in the first half of 6. And I just felt like Siakam was better throughout the series. But I feel like I'm getting killed for it. Just getting killed everywhere tonight, guys.
Listen, Fred,
you'll get the finals MVP trophy, right? Thank you, Fred Katz. Read the article. It's linked right now. It's pinned right now in the Knicks Film School chat. Both Fred Katz and Fred Katz and James Edwards. Thank you, Fred.
And go subscribe to Katz and Shoot on Patreon.com, where Fred and James will surely dive much deeper into the article that Fred just published tonight.
We'll dive. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Fred.